you're a kid who's 15 years old or 12 or 17, and all this is all happening at the same time. And it became very accessible for me. So you'd go to the show, you'd buy the record, you'd hang out with the band, you'd see where they got signed to, you'd check out some of the other bands on the same record label. You'd hear them on the radio. They might even do a live, show on the radio where they're playing live on the air. So all that stuff was intertwined. You go to the local record store, you buy the record, or you buy the T-shirt. Everything was really kind of nicely connected in a sense here, and I really enjoyed being a part of the local music community. And of course, again, I was a performer as well, so I try to hop on those bills as an opener and really, be a part of the scene as much as I could, and really, really had a great experience, trying to get myself into a position to where I could actually become a music writer and eventually, have a music magazine. And now here I am talking about music with students at the university.
Waleed, thank you so much. You said 1 to 2, and we got you. It's 2:04. Thank you. Sorry about the technical stuff.
No problem. No problem at all. I do have a few more minutes if you have a few more questions. Just
well, I actually just had one because I work with students and but younger like high school, sometimes middle school, and they are blown away by how we used to do things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so the other day, just for fun, I brought in the version of the phone book today, and I was like, guys, this used to be the internet. How do your students react when you talk about faxes and you talk about, I would send a check to this person, like it wasn't Venmo, it wasn't PayPal, like how did they react to like the analog world that you speak of?
They are fascinated. At the same time, I think they're also equally they're equally concerned about the fact that I used to have to do so much to make something happen. I was telling them that, I mean, there are bands that I used to write to. I mean, we'd literally write letters to, and that's how I connected with some of my favorite artists. Was I used to write letters to Bill Stevenson, and all, and be like, hey, I love your drumming and I love your band and all this. I used to write letters to bands, and I was talking to them about, calling long distance was expensive. You couldn't even pick up the phone and call your favorite band, even if you had their phone number and even if they're willing to talk to you, because it's so expensive. So you'd write them postcards, and they'd write back, postcards, because postcards are cheaper than calling long distance. So I talked about the manual way in which we used to do a lot of things, the analog way in which things were done. Booking a show, you would mail a cassette tape to the venue, to book a show, and then you would call them and you'd leave messages on their answering machine and hope that they would call you back, and you didn't miss the call, or maybe they left a message on your answering machine. So didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a lot of email going on, we didn't have a lot of the technology that we have today. And I think a lot of them are sometimes just kind of confused, like, well, then how did you pull it off? I don't understand. Like, can you elaborate on this? Others are kind of like, wow, so glad that wasn't me at that time. I would not want to go through all of that to make that happen. So I think a lot of them, also appreciate the fact that they have the technologies that they have today, and the fact that they didn't have to go through so many different hoops to make something happen, like you and I perhaps had to do at various stages in our experience in the music scene, trying to make shows happen, trying to, get our records out there, and trying to get our stories out there, and all the things that we used to have to do that were so manually involved. And, I think a lot of them kind of appreciate the fact that we did that, but we did the legwork. So therefore now they don't have to necessarily do that because of all the technologies are available and all the other things that have kind of come up through the industry and through the scene that they can do now that make their lives a lot more convenient.
Do you find that students are doing the stuff that you used to do outside of the classroom? Do you find that they're doing that, or are they kind of like, I'm going to follow the syllabus? Because that's one thing that I try to tell the students that I work with. Like, if they're interested in something, I say start doing it, but they're like, how? And I'm like, guys, you guys have your phones, you walk around with a movie studio and a recording studio in your pocket. I go, I didn't have that. Like, we had to, do you find that students are receptive to that, or like, or is it a mix?
No, I do. I think that they are receptive to it. And in fact, I just had a student a few days, actually last week, come up to me and said, "Hey, I'm a musician. I'm interested in furthering my career as a performer, but all I'm doing right now is just kind of doing open mic nights, and that's about it." And I said, you might want to start throwing your own shows and maybe connecting with other local artists, so therefore you can do a show with maybe you and a few other artists who are at the kind of the same level as you are, and each one of you will bring your own audiences to the show, and then of course you can share your audiences, so they'll hear your band and you'll hear and then your audiences will hear the other bands, and you can kind of start to make a community, and you can see a light bulb kind of turn on in his head there, and he thought, yeah, you know what, maybe I should connect with other local artists, maybe we should throw a local show. Why not? Why am I doing all these open mic nights when with other artists that are kind of disconnected from me, when I can find artists of the same caliber and the same sound, and I know these people? We should maybe start to make a local community. So I was trying to basically show him the ways in which I used to do things, which was back in the '90s, as you know, there were a lot of cool coffee houses that were doing local shows. You could do all ages shows, and we had quite a few up this way. There was Cup of J in Pomona that used to do a lot of local shows, and there was a place called Espresso Yourself. And there were all these like local coffee houses in the mid '90s that were doing local shows, all ages shows. And so I was trying to kind of talk to him about, I used to do things this way, where I'd find local artists and we'd all kind of come together and we'd call them up and say, "Hey, you want to do a show on, this date and this time?" We'd call the coffee house, they're available. We'd put the show together. So I was trying to kind of convey that, yeah, you can still do this. This is still something that I think that you can put together, and it's not impossible. And if you have the connections to talk to other artists that are local to you, put on a local show, and that way your audience can be exposed to other artists, and their audiences can be exposed to you, and you can simultaneously grow your audience base, your fan base, your network, and you can keep moving your way forward into your career as a musician.
Waleed, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I feel we got a lot accomplished today. Great talking with you. Let's talk again. Let's stay in touch. I will hit you up about recording and whatnot. And happy to hear that you're doing the band with Todd and Guy and
Chris.
Chris.
It's great to be in a band with people who I've musicians I've really loved for such a long time. Again, Todd and Guy, Game Face, and of course Guy. Even before that with the Tank and all that. It's so neat that here I am. I used to go and see their bands play in the '90s, and now here I am playing with them. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.